Good morning. Welcome to the Somerset News Network. I was going to do a video with Betty again and find out what's going on in the States. The BBC and all the news casters are promoting a Biden win. Yet on the other hand, Trump will not accept that Biden has won. And then on the other hand, he tells us, this is Trump, that there's been voter fraud. Now, they say, oh, there's no evidence for this, there's no evidence for this. Well, when you go on social media and watch the people on the streets, it could be said to be anecdotal evidence. But I would call it evidence because it's eyewitness evidence of people that are actually there on the ground. One guy was handing out pens at a polling station because when they went in, pens were being taken off of them and they were being given styluses. Scratchers, they called it, to make a mark, but it wouldn't make a pen mark. So if you voted Republican, that ballot paper would have been rejected. At the end of the day, they found loads of postal ballots in Nevada and Pennsylvania. Now, a friend of mine is in Pennsylvania, and he tells me that 100% of the ballots found have been for Biden. Just absolutely impossible. Here's a short clip of Biden telling everybody that he's got the biggest and most expensive voter fraud operation in history.
Secondly, we're in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for our administration, the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
So, you've seen it from the horse's mouth. The guy has said it. Now, how do they do this voter fraud? Well, they use postal votes. They did it here in the UK. 2 councillors actually went to jail for 2 years each in Birmingham for rigging postal votes. Over here in the UK, what they were doing was they were using the unions and the Labour Party workers who were involved with social services and would go round and meet the elderly people. The postal votes would come and they would say, oh, do you want this postal vote? They would say, no, I don't bother about it. They'd say, oh, all right, I'll look after it. And then they'd vote for them. The other way they were doing it was offering £10 for a clean ballot paper. That was the referendum this year, that we had the EU referendum. Another person told me she won't come on air. I've been trying to get her to do an interview with me. She told me that she was at a count. She wanted to go to the loo and was trying to find the loo outside. So she went out and she went into a small room and there was a bunch of party workers there filling in postal ballots for their candidate. And then they were going into the count. They were checked. All they were doing was putting a cross on a ballot paper and putting it through. She's scared for her life if she comes out and says it openly. You know, that's how much power these people have got. Things are not what they seem. The reports we're getting from mainstream media and the BBC are missing a lot of the information out that's being reported on social media. And I'm talking about reliable sites. Now, Dr. Pachenik who's ex-CIA, is working with Trump, he tells us. He says that Trump has done a sting operation. Now, exactly how this sting operation works, we're not sure. But what they've said is that the ballot papers, the postal ballot papers, they've put a watermark on it. And they wanted to go in to the count in Philadelphia and the count in Nevada, which they're allowed to do by law. And they weren't allowed in. They were not allowed to check the postal votes because they said we could easily check them to see if they had the watermark on them. The fear is that they've taken the postal ballots, printed new ones, scanned them and printed them off on an inkjet printer, I expect. Inkjet printers and scanners are so good now, you can do almost perfect copies. And it's not impossible that they can get the printing done. So that's possible. But if they're not allowed to check, how do you prove it? Now, they weren't allowed in in Pennsylvania, where my friend is. In Nevada, the chairman of the Trump campaign in Nevada got a court order to go and view the postal ballots. They were refused entry to the count. They could not look at them. That fight still goes on. So this isn't over. My friends in the States are telling me to hold fire and not call it for Biden yet because these problems have got to be solved. Now, even if it is a close vote, and there has been voter fraud, has Biden still won or not? We don't know the answer to that. But should you be allowed to win if you've cheated? If you cheated cards, you cheated horse racing, you're immediately suspended, thrown out of the game. So my suggestion is if Biden is found to have fortunately won votes, that his candidate should be null and void. That's my explanation. That's what I would like to see happen. Don't know if it will, but that's what I'd like to see happen. There's a report that a 118-year-old man who died in 1984 has voted. Is this true or not? This is one of the stories that's being bounded around. This is what was happening here in the UK. The party workers were using kids' names, people who had died. If, when somebody dies, like my mum and my dad have just passed away this year, you can still get mail for them. Well, if they hadn't stopped their postal vote, then the postal votes or voting cards would have still come through automatically. Now, if it was happening here, people were picking up the cards and using them. I don't know if this is the same sort of thing that would happen in the States. That people are dead that are still registered, that they just keep registering them so that they can still vote. So they're basically stealing a vote. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you now with Dr. Pieczenik talking on the Alex Jones Show, talking to InfoWars about what's going on. If you don't believe me, believe Pieczenik. He's the guy in the know. He knows what's going on. Anyway, this is Dr. Pieczenik talking on InfoWars about the voter fraud.